At a local pub, my son and I discovered an incredible truth when the bartender grabbed my hand. Every Thursday evening, the warm glow of Freddy's pub felt like home to Mike and Jake. As they settled into their usual booth, the aroma of sizzling burgers filled the air, mingling with laughter and soft chatter. Mike poured his heart into these moments, grasping for the threads that held them together as father and son. But the shadows of unpaid rent loomed large and heavy, tugging at his heart and mind. The strain of being a single father weighed on him, a battle he fought silently as he looked into Jake's distant eyes. Tonight was trivia night, and a tension crackled beneath the surface. They bantered about answers and relived good memories, but Jake seemed lost somewhere between adolescence and the growing burdens of their reality. Mike felt it, the shuddering of their connection that echoed the struggles they faced day in and day out. Then came Bob, the pub's bartender, a grizzled veteran whose tales could spark joy even in the stormiest hearts. As he poured their drinks, he shared stories from his time in Vietnam, his voice mixing with the clinking glasses. But suddenly, Bob paused, looked Mike dead in the eye, and grasped his hand with a warmth that shot up Mike's arm like a spark. The unexpected gesture tied their hearts together more than words could. "Life can be a heavy load," Bob said, his eyes reflecting the honesty of his past. "I know that. You gotta lean on someone." Mike inhaled sharply, feeling the weight of Bob's admission. He was right. Emotions swirled, unspoken truths intertwined in a muddle of shame and pride. Mike thought of how far he'd drifted from Jake. Their conversations had become diffused, mundane. After all the sacrifices, he didn't want to be an island anymore. "Can you even imagine going to war for your country and coming home to an indifferent world?" Bob continued. "We push, we fight, yet those struggles, man, they can bury you whole if you let them." Mike felt the lump rise in his throat. He had glimpsed their mirrored lives, the hardship, the pain of being misunderstood. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Jake's gaze flickered back and forth between Mike and Bob. Something shifted, and Mike could almost see the tension dissolve into the air. He realized it wasn't just about surviving but about thriving together, as a family. They were lost in their struggles but still had the power to create joy. As the music swelled and the laughter echoed, Mike took a deep breath, determined not to let pride steal this possibility. Their world was about to change, though. News of a local factory closure reached their ears like a rumble of thunder, shaking the ground beneath their feet. The fear of losing everything gripped Mike's heart. Would this be the moment when they were finally broken? As he looked at Jake, he felt the pulse of uncertainty thumping loud against their shared dream of something greater. Together, they embodied resilience under pressure, but would it be enough? In that moment, as the future hung in the balance, they both wondered if their bond could stand the test of their trials. The chatter of the pub faded into a somber silence for Mike. The weight of Bob's words lingered like a dark cloud over him and Jake. Uncertainty washed over the room, as the news about the factory loomed larger than life itself. The laughter that had previously danced through the beer-stained air was now replaced by hushed whispers. Mike's heart raced. He knew that this was not just about job security anymore. This was about their family, their home, their future. He glanced over at Jake. A wave of concern washed over him as he noticed the crease forming between his son's brows. Mike needed to bridge the gap that had widened between them in recent months. "Jake," he said softly, his voice barely rising above the gathering gloom, "are you okay?" Jake shrugged, the weight of the world evident in the slump of his shoulders. "What do you think?" His voice was flat, devoid of the youthful energy Mike longed to see. That single phrase struck Mike like a slap, and for a moment, he felt powerless. "You know we'll figure this out, right?" Mike tried to inject hope into his words, but they felt feeble even to him, like a patch on a scorched landscape. Jake met his gaze, and for a fleeting second, Mike thought he saw a flicker of something: fear, anger, perhaps both. Figure what out? It's not just a job to us. It's everything, Dad. What are we going to do? I was hoping to save up for college, but his voice trailed off, frustration bubbling just beneath the surface. Mike's hands tightened into fists on the table, feeling the shift in the atmosphere like the calm before a storm. I know, buddy. I get it. But we're stronger together. We'll find a way, he said, trying to convey the certainty he didn't fully feel that in that moment. Bob returned with a fresh round of drinks, the air thickening with an unspoken urgency. What's all this about, fellas? He asked, his face etched with concern. Just about the factory closing, Jake replied, the isolation in his tone piercing through Mike's heart. Bob's expression softened. I've seen hard times. It's tough, but you have each other. Lean on each other. That's what family's for. He tapped a glass with a gentle clink. To families and facing life's battles together. Mike raised his glass, the weight of Bob's words hanging in the air like a heavy fog, a bittersweet reminder of the battles he and Jake were already facing. He couldn't shake off the feeling that they were standing in front of an uphill climb that could threaten to break them apart, yet somehow, they had to find a way. Dad, Jake said suddenly, his voice low but filled with determination, maybe we need to think beyond the factory. I've heard about some local job openings. What if we both got jobs? What if I worked with you? The suggestion lingered between them, a spark igniting the air just enough to stir hope. You mean it? Mike asked, surprised. A sense of purpose began to replace the impending dread. Yeah. Together, right? Jake nodded, lifting his glass higher. The tension still lay thick in the air, but as their eyes locked, there was a glimmer of something else. Resilience. As they clinked their glasses toward the uncertain future, the shadow of fear began to shift, distorting under the light of newfound resolve. But just as the warmth of that moment broke through their chill, a loud crash suddenly echoed from the back room. What was that? Mike whispered, eyes shifting toward the sound. Jake's face tightened again, and Mike knew they were not out of the woods yet. There was something lurking in the shadows, something that could throw their newly formed plan into chaos. What could that be? Mike thought dreadfully, the ominous feeling settling back deep in his chest. Mike's heart raced as the crash rang out, echoing through the pub like thunder. He turned to the back room, where the noise had come from, an undercurrent of fear scrambling his thoughts. The once friendly atmosphere felt charged, as if every breath was holding back the coming storm. What was that? Jake asked, his voice barely above a whisper, as his grip tightened around his glass. Let's go check, Mike responded, rising from his seat. He fought to keep the tremor out of his voice, feeling the weight of Jake's anxious gaze. He wanted to comfort his son, but a knot formed in his stomach. They were already grappling with so much, the last thing they needed was a scene, or worse, a fight. They walked slowly toward the back, their footsteps muffled against the worn wooden floor. The sounds of the pub faded, replaced by an unsettling silence that loomed ahead. The door was slightly ajar, a sliver of dim light spilling through, revealing indistinct shapes moving beyond. As Mike pushed the door open, he was met with a sight that puzzled him. A group of men stood in a tense circle, muffled voices rising and falling like waves about to crash. In the center, one man's face was flushed with anger, while another appeared to be trying to defuse the situation. The tension crackled in the air, and Mike instinctively took a step back. Hey, let's keep it together, Bob called from behind the bar, his voice steady but firm. Not here, not tonight. Get lost, Bob. One of the men barked back, his tone laced with contempt, which sent a chill down Mike's spine. Jake shifted nervously, glancing up at his father. Mike felt the urge to shield him, to pull him away from the unfolding chaos. But then something else flickered in him, a surge of protective instinct mixed with curiosity. He couldn't ignore what his gut told him, that something about this scene was connected to their troubles, maybe even the factory. "Dad," Jake said quietly, his breath shaky. "Just hold on," Mike replied, his voice a calming whisper. "Let me listen." He inched closer, straining to catch the words being exchanged. They were fighting over something more than just space, it was as if they were disputing their futures. Mike's heart sank, realizing that while he and Jake had been busy navigating their own struggles, others were grappling with their own demons. "It's not just about us losing jobs," the angry man snapped. "It's about everyone. The whole town could crumble." "Enough!" shouted the other man. "We have to band together, or we'll all be scattered like leaves in the wind." A knot tightened in Mike's throat. This wasn't just about a factory, it was about community, about standing together or falling apart. He turned to Jake, whose expression mirrored his own dread and determination. "We need to help," Jake said, his voice gaining strength. "If they're hurting, that affects us, too." Mike nodded slowly, a sense of urgency igniting beneath his skin. "You're right. We can't just sit and watch." As they stepped back into the room, ready to confront the brewing storm, a sudden voice broke through the noise. "Hey! I need your attention," Bob called, his tone commanding. All eyes turned to him, as the tension stilled for an instant. "We've got problems that need addressing," he said firmly, "but fighting each other won't fix anything. We can find a way through this together." Hope flickered in Mike's chest, but there was an unspoken weight in the air. He knew this was only the beginning. They had to do more than just speak up, they needed a plan that could bring the community together, and quickly. As the murmurs in the room began to shift toward agreement, Mike felt Jake's hand grip his tightly. "Let us make this right, Dad. For all of us." The warmth of the moment was quickly eclipsed by the uncertainty that still surrounded them. Mike couldn't shake the feeling that their fight had just started. And then again, behind that feeling, a troubling whisper of doubt tugged at his gut. What if the rifts among them ran too deep? They were on the edge of something monumental. Something that could either unite them or tear everything apart. The question loomed heavy in the air, could they truly come together and make a difference before it was too late? As Bob's voice echoed in the charged atmosphere, Mike felt the energy in the room shift. Tension melted, if only slightly, and Mike took a breath that momentarily eased the tightness in his chest. They were still standing in the doorway, but now it felt like the threshold to a new possibility. "What do you mean, together?" one of the men asked, skepticism sharp in his tone. Other murmurs followed, voices rising and dipping, reflecting a blend of anger, hope, and bewilderment. Bob stepped forward, his presence unwavering. "The factory closing doesn't just affect the workers. It affects the whole town, businesses, schools, families. We're all in this mess together. Fighting among ourselves won't help us find a solution." Mike exchanged a quick glance with Jake. His son's face was set with determination, and the fire in his eyes mirrored Mike's own rising resolve. Maybe this was their chance to do something meaningful. "Bob's right," Mike spoke up, his voice steady. "We can't afford to fall apart. We need to find common ground and fight for our future." The murmurs grew louder, but this time they didn't sound hostile. People nodded, and Mike felt a flicker of something that had been missing for too long: unity. "What are you suggesting?" another man, older and grizzled, shot back. "Let us organize a meeting," Jake blurted out, surprising both himself and Mike. "Get everyone together, workers, leaders, even the businesses that will be impacted. We can brainstorm solutions. Create a plan." The room seemed to hold its breath. Mike could feel the weight of expectation, not just for Jake's idea but for what could come next. "You think that'll work?" a voice piped up from the back, skeptical, yet curious. "It has to," Mike replied, his heart racing with hope. "If we don't start talking, we're leaving everything to chance. We can't afford that." After a moment's pause, the man who had voiced doubt shrugged. I'm in. I can talk to the shop owners. A ripple of agreement flowed through the crowd. Suddenly, a weight lifted. It wasn't definitive, but the air crackled with potential. Ideas began to bounce around. Names were thrown out for potential meeting locations and dates. Mike felt a surge of energy, fueled by Jake's presence at his side. Yet, beneath that growing resolve flickered the persistent question, what if this was just the calm before a much larger storm? Mike took a moment to absorb the scene, the people once divided now converging. Bob was rallying a few stragglers, encouraging them to share their own ideas. Jake was animatedly talking to another young man, his enthusiasm infectious. It felt powerful, but the memory of the angry confrontation lingered in the back of Mike's mind. Change wasn't just about discussions, it would require unity, strength, and sacrifice. As they stepped out from the back room, the atmosphere in the pub changed. The once heavy silence was now punctuated with hopeful voices. Mike couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something monumental, but with the path ahead shrouded in uncertainty, the stakes were high. "We'll do this together," Mike said firmly to Jake, feeling a surge of determination. Just as they turned to leave, Bob darted back toward them. "Mike, can I talk to you for a second?" Mike nodded, and as he stepped aside, he caught Jake's eye. The look he wore was a mix of pride and anticipation. Whatever this next moment held, they were indeed in it together. Bob leaned in closer, a serious look on his face. "There's something else you need to know, something you might not be prepared for." And in that instant, Mike's heart dropped. What further truth lay hidden, lurking in the shadows of this newfound unity? Bob's expression tightened. "It's about the town's future and the factory owners." His tone carried a weight that sent shivers down Mike's spine. The energy in the room seemed to still, a breath held tight while Mike braced himself for what was to come. "What do you mean?" Mike asked, urgency crowding his voice. He saw Jake's furrowed brow, the anxiety etched on his face. As a father, he wanted to shield Jake from this chaos, but he was also painfully aware of how intertwined their lives were with the fate of the factory. Bob glanced around, ensuring no one was eavesdropping. "I heard some things, rumors about their plans. They might not only shut down but also look to sell the land to developers." The implications slammed into Mike like a freight train. For what? A strip mall? Condos? He couldn't hide the bitterness in his voice. The thought of transforming their hard-won community into another faceless development shook him to his core. Bob nodded gravely. "Exactly. And if that happens, there's no going back. This isn't just about jobs, it's about our homes, our identities." Jake clenched his fists. "What do we do?" His youthful face burned with the kind of fierce determination that Mike had hoped to inspire. In that moment, Mike felt a swell of pride for the young man he was raising. "We need to take action before it's too late," Bob continued. "Holding a meeting is a good start, but we have to be ready to stand strong. Rally the community around a common goal." Mike's heart pounded a steady rhythm of resolve. "We could organize protests, and not just that. If we can get everyone to attend the meeting, we can show them we won't back down. They need to see we're united." Bob's eyes lit with a flicker of hope. "And we need to approach the local media. Show them that this fight affects not just us, but the entire town." In that brief moment, Mike felt a spark of unity bloom again. Their shared determination wrapped around them like a warm blanket, a feeling long forgotten. He placed a hand on Jake's shoulder, squeezing it gently. "You feel it too, don't you?" "I do." Jake's voice was steady. "It's time to fight." As they stepped out of the back room, the pub pulsed with newfound energy. Voices buzzed louder, people animatedly discussing the next steps. Mike felt his spirit lift. They could stand up, fight back. They had to. The tension that once loomed over them now felt like a challenge, one they were ready to confront together. Mike couldn't help but smile, feeling that the love for their town intertwined with the hope nestled in his chest, but just as the excitement began to spread, a loud crash echoed from across the pub. All heads turned toward a group of rowdy patrons at the far end, a ruckus unfurling, threatening to derail their moment of purpose. "Let's keep this focused," someone shouted, but the smattering of urgent voices rang in discord. Mike felt his heart race. Just as they were building momentum, the fracture of confrontation threatened to pull them apart again. He exchanged a worried glance with Bob and Jake. Would this unity last? "Stay close," Bob said, a newfound authority in his tone. "We need to make sure our message doesn't get drowned out." As Mike prepared to step towards the growing chaos, a familiar voice called from behind the bar. "Hey! Everyone, let's calm it down. We all want the same thing here." And in that moment, hope twisted with fear. Mike knew they had come too far to back down now. But would the chaos outside snuff out the light they had ignited? He took a deep breath, ready to confront the unknown that lay ahead. Whatever lay before them, they had each other. But drifting through the crowd was one question that loomed like an uncharted storm: could they really hold the pieces of their town together when confronted by the inevitable? Mike stepped forward, feeling the pulse of conflicting emotions. The voices of the rowdy patrons grew louder, clashing with the energy of purpose that had filled the pub just moments before. He scanned the scene, uncertainty creeping in. "Focus!" shouted a woman from the back, her voice cutting above the rising tide of shouts. "We need to stick together." In that moment, Mike felt a rush of determination. They couldn't let the chaos silence their fight. But just as quickly, dread gripped him. Would their resolve hold up against such distractions? "Let us move," Bob urged, edging Mike and Jake toward the disturbance. The three of them approached the fray, each step fueling the fire in Mike's heart. But as they drew closer, he realized the altercation was rooted in the very despair they aimed to battle, the frustration of people feeling powerless, of their livelihoods on the brink. A man stumbled back from the bar, anger etched into his face. "They don't care about us," he barked. "They just want their money." His hands waved in wild gestures, drawing more attention to the divide in the room. Mike's heart sank. This wasn't just a disagreement, it was a raw wound, an open invitation for frustration to seep into their organized spirit. "Everyone, please." Jake's voice rang out, filled with the nervous energy of youth. "We share the same fight. Don't let this tear us apart." The room fell silent for a moment, glances exchanged. Mike watched as some people turned back to one another, their expressions softening. Hope flickered, but he knew they had to keep pushing. "Listen!" Bob shouted, stepping up onto a bar stool to elevate his voice. "We're here because we love our town. If we don't unite now, we'll lose everything. We can stand together and fight for what's right." A ripple of agreement broke through the crowd. Mike felt goosebumps rise on his arms. The tension shifted as anger transformed into dialogue. People began sharing stories, experiences of hardship, their fears of losing everything they'd ever known. The bar was crowded with pain but also resilience. "You think this will solve anything?" A familiar face piped up. It was Maria, a local teacher who had always championed for their community. "We need to recognize our strength. If we don't have the factory, we must fight for the land, make it ours, together." Murmurs of agreement danced through the crowd, sparking enthusiasm. Mike could sense a renewed vigor rising, like the first bloom of spring pushing through the winter frost. Each voice blended into a symphony of purpose that ignited the passion within him. "Let us start right now," Jake shouted, his youthful energy contagious. "We can make signs, plan a rally, let everyone know we are united." Tears filled Maria's eyes as she nodded, and a collective cheer erupted, drowning out the remnants of anger. The dynamic shifted, transformed by their conviction. Even though chaos had threatened to divide them, it had ultimately forged a connection deeper than before. As excitement filled the pub, a figure stepped out from the back, a man in a sharp suit, an outsider to their small-town struggles. He shook his head slowly, his disinterest apparent. "You think you can really stop what's coming?" His voice dripped with condescension, planting doubt like a seed amongst their joy. Mike felt anger rise within him again but held it back. The words hung heavy in the air, but this time they wouldn't back down. "Watch us," Mike said, meeting the man's gaze. "We will not let our town be taken." But the question lingered, could they really confront this force of indifference? Would their unity be enough against the looming decisions that could change everything? As Mike prepared to lead the charge, he felt Jake's hand squeeze his shoulder, a reminder of their bond, their shared fight. But now faced with external challenges, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. What consequences awaited them? And would that outsider still be standing strong when they unveiled their plans moving forward? The atmosphere in the pub crackled with an electric tension, urgency palpable in the air. Mike could feel a sentiment sparking among the group, bringing life to what had felt like a fragile unity just moments before. He glanced at the worried faces around him, people who had shared laughter and tears, frustrations and dreams in this small corner of the world. They were all in this together. "Let us break into teams," Mike suggested, his voice gaining weight. "We can cover more ground that way. Make a list of all we need to do. Signs, what we want to say, where we can rally." The words spilled out before the crowd, gaining traction with every syllable. He saw Jake nod vigorously, eyes wide with enthusiasm. "Nothing crazy, just the truth. We need to show that we care, that we're willing to fight." Cheers ignited, fueling a wildfire of motivation. Individuals sprung to action, gathering materials from the bar and surrounding tables. Old cardboard, excitement morphing plans into tangible objects. It was beautiful to behold. A movement was being born right before his eyes. Even Maria was rallying people together, assigning tasks with a fierce determination. "We'll need a speaker at the rally, too. Someone who can capture everyone's hearts," she called, revealing a passion that Mike admired deeply. The mood shifted from despair to unyielding hope. Yet that nagging voice, the man from the back, echoed in Mike's mind. Would they really be listened to? The rational part of him kicked in, momentarily overshadowing the excitement. Could their festive spirit swing wide enough to sail through the storms they were about to face? As the makeshift meeting unfolded, the sound of laughter and chatter bounced around the room. Yet Mike couldn't shake the weight of the outsider's dismissive gaze. Somewhere in him, fear twisted and churned. "Hey!" Jake's voice broke through the thoughts swirling in Mike's mind. "What about you?" he asked, pointing directly at him. "You're a great leader, man. You should be the one to speak." The suggestion landed with unexpected force. "Me?" Mike stumbled over the word, feeling the weight of the room shift towards him, expectant and hopeful. "I don't know if I can." "Of course you can," Maria chimed in, her eyes sparkling. "You just stood up to that guy. You've got this." It felt strange, this newfound spotlight, yet thrilling too. The realization washed over him that he had a chance to inspire, to lead these passionate individuals with a common goal. "All right then," Mike said, taking a deep breath, fueled by shared resolve. "I'll do it." Just as he began to form thoughts on how to captivate their hearts with words, the crowd turned to the entrance. The man in the sharp suit had returned, this time flanked by another figure, a cold smile plastered on his face. "You thought you were onto something good?" he taunted, surveying the pub with an air of superiority. "Do you really believe this little gathering will matter?" Gasps rippled through the crowd, Mike feeling their collective insecurity bubble to the surface again. But now he had a purpose, a voice meant to counter such doubt. "Look," he started, forcing confidence into his shaky words. "We are stronger together than any suit this town has ever seen. We exist. We have a voice, and we refuse to be silent." With every declaration, he felt more sure of himself, the strength of his community behind him. But even as the crowd erupted into cheers, he sensed that the true battle was only just beginning, one that might change everything forever. As the outsider laughed, Mike's heart pounded. What might happen next? Would they all still stand tall once the storm broke? And who was that figure lurking behind the man in the suit, ready to throw another wrench into their plans. The laughter and cheers settled into uncertain murmurs, the atmosphere shifting as the man in the suit stood tall, exuding a confidence that sent shivers through the crowd. Mike felt the resolve in the room melt slightly, doubt creeping back in like a shadow. He clenched his fists, trying to hang on to the fire ignited moments before. "What do you want?" a voice called out from the crowd, a woman with fire in her eyes. Mike recognized her, a mother who'd attended every town hall meeting, always fighting for her children's school funding. Her courage pierced the tension, and he felt a jolt of unity, but the man's smirk only widened. "You're all wasting your time," he retorted, leaning against the doorframe like a king surveying his subjects. "You think you can change anything from this little pub? You'll be forgotten before your rally even begins." "That's not true." Jake shot back, his youthful defiance rising. "We're not going to back down. We deserve to be heard. That's the spirit." Mike added, his voice rising in volume, aiming to drown the suit's condescension. "We're not just whispers in the wind. We are a force." He felt heat in his cheeks, a rush of adrenaline mingled with fear, yet the fire in his belly told him to press on, but just as quickly as the mood lifted, the second figure beside the man stepped forward. She was cloaked in professionalism, her expression hard as stone. Mike sensed the collective breath of the crowd hitch in dread. "You should listen to him," she said coolly, her eyes scanning the room. "Every time you've tried to rally before, nothing has changed. Why would this time be any different?" The weight of her words punched through the cheerful haze they created. Suspicion danced in the air as murmurs echoed the doubts. Would it really matter? Because we're not just trying to change things for ourselves. We're fighting for our future. Mike shouted, desperation pulling at his voice. For the next generation, for our children. It matters because we matter. His heart raced as he locked eyes with Maria, Jake, and the others. He could see their determination mirrored back, but doubt still lingered, woven through the crowd. The sharp-suited man didn't flinch, his indifference a slap in the face. "You think the town cares about your little dreams?" He sneered, folding his arms with deliberate mockery. "They're too busy climbing the corporate ladder to worry about a few angry townsfolk in a pub." The crowd gasped again, their collective hearts sinking like a stone. Anger bubbled up within Mike, but beneath it, a deeper truth emerged: the community had strength, the kind that couldn't be bought or silenced. "We'll make them listen," he declared, finding his footing, emboldened by the earnest faces around him. "We're about to make our voices heard whether they like it or not." For a heartbeat, the pub felt electric again. Heads nodded, fingers curled into fists. They were ready for the challenge, ready to stand against the harsh winds of doubt. "Let us do it. Rally at the town square," Jake shouted, igniting the excitement. Laughter erupted again as plans started sparking wildly. The mood shifted back, the fire ignited again, but suddenly, a loud crash reverberated through the pub, all heads turned. A table had toppled over, scattering glasses and chairs everywhere. In the chaos, the man in the suit stepped back, his arrogance slipping for just a moment, revealing vulnerability. "Enough of this. You don't want to see what I can do to ruin this little movement of yours," he warned, his voice now laced with an edge of fear. That fear sent a rippling excitement through Mike. What could the suit actually do? The battle lines were drawn, and all of them stood at the ready, hearts pounding. "Let us give him a reason to fear us," Mike exclaimed, galvanizing the crowd once again. They roared in response, a wave of defiance crashing through the room, but a lingering thought gnawed at his mind: if they pushed, what would be the cost? What devastating sneak attack might that imposing figure truly hold? As Mike looked around at the faces lit with determination, a small flicker of doubt resurfaced, mixed with determination. Would they really come together when it mattered most? What lay ahead seemed teetering on the edge, a risk their hearts had to take together. The air thickened with anticipation as the man's smile faded. This was just the beginning, and they were far from done. What was their next move? Would they face the storms ahead united, or would the man in the suit reveal an unexpected weapon to destroy everything they stood for? The moment in the pub transformed into a whirlwind of energy, charged with fear and hope. Mike registered the faces around him, each one burning with a desire for change, but the specter of doubt loomed larger with every word the man in the suit uttered. Jake's shout still echoed in his ears, but the growing reality sank in. They had no guarantees. Time is of the essence, the woman beside the man said, her cold demeanor signaling that this was not just a matter of town politics. The longer you keep this up, the more you'll regret it. Her gaze swept over the crowd, almost daring anyone to respond. A few shifted uneasily. Mike felt a stir of anxiety but pushed it back. We'll meet outside. Everyone, we need to get our signs, spread the word. He turned to move toward the door, but the man stepped in front of him, blocking his path. You think this little movement means anything? He spat, voice dripping with condescension. What stands between you and failure? Mike's pulse quickened, but he couldn't let fear control him anymore. A community that cares, he replied, surprising himself with the steady tone. You'll see. As Mike sidestepped the figure, he felt Jake's eager presence right behind him. Together, they charged into the crisp evening outside, the air thick with tension yet electrifying. In the square, the first few folks were gathering, whispering among themselves. Maria, the passionate mother, rallied a couple of families together. Each new face added to their numbers, and Mike felt the flutters of hope begin to bloom despite the gnawing worry still clawing at his insides. That jerk in there thinks he can intimidate us, but we're more than just bodies in a room. Mike declared, feeling the urgency wash over him. We're parents, children, friends. We're families who want to fight for what we believe in. Cheers erupted in response, and Emma, an elderly woman with a gentle smile, stepped forward. I've been waiting for a reason to fight back, she said, and laughter mingled with their shared conviction. Yet, as more townsfolk arrived, a thought tugged at Mike. It was easy to feel invincible in this moment, but the uncertainty loomed. What would happen if they failed? The hint of fear began to creep back in. Suddenly, the door behind them burst open, the man in the suit reappeared, flanked by a couple of stern-looking figures. You really think you're ready to stir a hornet's nest? He challenged, eyes like ice. You'll regret this, believe me. Mike's heart raced. They had been feeling empowered mere moments ago, but now that confidence began to slip, replaced by a chilling apprehension. The man's cold stare made them feel so small, yet something screamed inside Mike, they had come too far to back down now. Listen. Maria shouted, stepping forward. We won't let fear keep us silent anymore. We're here, ready to stand together. The crowd cheered again, but the overshadowing threat of the suit's presence operated like a looming storm cloud. Remember that you are opening a door you can't close, he warned, voice lowering to a dangerous pitch. A door filled with consequences. And I assure you, they won't be pretty. His gaze swept the crowd, and Mike felt every throat tighten, every heart falter. But he wouldn't let fear shatter their resolve. Then let us make sure they see us. Mike shouted. Let us take this to the streets. The cheers thundered back, bass notes of courage outweighing the sounds of doubt. It was exhilarating but also terrifying. They were moving from words to action, and with that came uncertainty. As the crowd began to shift towards the square, Mike stopped for a split second, feeling something cold grip his heart. He didn't fully grasp what lay ahead, but somehow, he knew they had stepped into a battle that could change everything. Would they rise together, or would the storm sweep them away? With that haunting question echoing in his mind, Mike followed the wave of heated determination into the night. What price would they have to pay to stand their ground? As the afternoon light dimmed into a dusky twilight, Mike felt the weight of uncertainty pressing against his chest. Families surrounded him, their faces melting into a tapestry of determination. No one could turn back now, they had ignited something powerful. But the lingering threat of the man in the suit echoed in his mind, a cruel reminder of the stakes at hand. Mike stood forward, emboldened by the energy crackling in the air. "Tonight, we stand united," he shouted, trying to keep the fear at bay. "Tonight, we fight not just for jobs, but for our families, our homes, our future." The crowd erupted into cheers, a wave of sound that washed over him like a warm embrace. In that moment, he could feel his connection with Jake strengthening, their eyes locked in a gaze that spoke 1,000 words: hope, love, determination. "Let us make signs. Let us show them we mean business," Jake called out, a joy-filled light igniting his youthful face. They spread out in groups, gathering materials from the nearby shops and pub. Families worked side by side, scribbling messages of resilience and unity, a common thread weaving through every phrase. The sun dipped lower, the sky painted in hues of orange and purple, turning their community gathering into a scene filled with warmth and love. Despite the chill creeping in, joy bounced around them as laughter echoed softly, and it felt like a moment from a movie, hope blossoming in the places they'd felt darkness invade. Yet, inside, Mike felt a flicker of doubt. Could this be enough? They were facing not just one outsider but a system entrenched with dispassionate decisions made in high offices far away. Would their voices truly be heard? In the distance, he spotted the man in the suit, flanked by his stern companions, lingering like a storm cloud. Their presence sent chills down his spine, but he clung to the courage surrounding him. "Let us get ready," Maria shouted, rallying the troops. "We'll meet at the town square. It's time the world knows our names." As the crowd journeyed toward the square, Mike could feel his sweat prickling his forehead. He took a deep breath, letting the scent of hope mix with the crisp evening air. It was time to show everyone that they wouldn't be silenced. As they arrived, the square thrummed with energy from the crowd forming. It was a small gathering, but it pulsed with conviction. Signs crafted with love filled the area, each proclamation standing proud: "We stand together. Don't take our homes." Just then, the man in the suit stepped forward, an arrogant expression plastered on his face. "You think this little display will change anything?" His tone dripped with condescension. "Your fight is meaningless." But Mike could see the anger rising in the crowd, a shared fury that brewed beneath the surface. Jake squeezed Mike's hand tightly, his face alight with a fierce determination. "Dad, we can't let him intimidate us," he said, voice steady. "You're right, son," Mike affirmed, stepping onto the platform they hastily arranged. He could feel the prick of anxiety, but he pushed through. This moment is for every father, mother, sister, and brother who believes in a tomorrow filled with hope. The crowd roared with approval, drowning out the suit's mocking laughter. "We're all in this together," Mike continued, feeling the strength in their numbers. "And if we can show them our strength, they will have no choice but to listen. This community is alive, just like our dreams, and we won't allow anyone to strip that away from us." A cheer erupted, resonant and fierce, echoing through the streets, an anthem of defiance. As Mike scanned the sea of faces, he noticed the flickers of hope in everyone's eyes. He was leading them not just into protest but into a united vision of growth and flourishing. "Let us take this feeling to the town hall," Maria shouted, igniting a wave of excitement. They could display their unity in solid numbers, turning the rumble of discontent into a roar. Moments later, they marched to the town hall in defiant solidarity. The path felt like stepping onto sacred ground, each footfall resonating with promises unspoken. As they approached the town hall, the man trailed behind, his indifference cracking as the crowd grew more unified. "Let them see how powerful we can be," Jake yelled, a fire burning bright behind his eyes. Mike could almost feel the transformation in the entire crowd. They had come together as families with shared dreams. The final moment ignited when they reached the town hall steps, an official landmark that now stood as a battlefront. They raised their signs high, calling out a chorus of slogans that seemed unstoppable. Hope surged in waves as their unified voices rang out. Then, the unexpected happened. The doors of the town hall burst open. Elected officials emerged, surprised yet intrigued by the sudden rally outside. Mike steadied his breath, heart pounding. "This is our chance," he whispered to Jake, who nodded in silence, determination shining brightly. The crowd swelled in number, their names undeniably alive. Right then, they became more than just angry residents, they became a community inspired by love and resilience. Unspoken bonds held them together like armor against the storm that loomed beyond the hall. They were family together in their fight, together in their promise for a better tomorrow. They would stand strong for one another, and for every voice that had been silenced in the process. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Mike felt the warmth of hope envelop them. They carried each other forward, into the winds of change, hands held tight, hearts full of courage. They were ready to face whatever the uncertain tomorrow held, standing tall, unbreakable, and this was only the beginning. Now more than ever, it's crucial for you to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, your support makes a difference. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this incredible ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. We're in this together. Don't wait not even one more second to share the love and urgency of our story.